Hello everyone, and welcome to a vintage cube draft here on Magic Online. Just about to enter the draft. As you can see, I've got 4 trophies, and actually every single one of them has been a monocolored aggro deck. So that being said, here I am trying to teach everyone how to draft the vintage cube. It's, for people who don't know, it's a collection of the most powerful cards in Magic's history, including all of the Power 9 cards, the Black Lotus, Mox, Time Walk, Ancestral Recall, etc. And my number one tip for going into Vintage Cube is, if you see one of those in one of your packs, just take it. Outside of Time Twister, there's basically no other pick that could be better. Sometimes Sol Ring, which is almost a Power 9 level card, will be more powerful, but it's normally hard and fast rule just to take the power. After power, what you're going to look for is fast mana, and in this pack we've got a good example because we have Mana Vault here. Just going to bring up a preview pane. So Mana Vault is a 1-mana artifact that taps for 3 mana and doesn't untap during your untap step. You can pay 4 to untap it. So fast mana is what you look for after you've looked for power. Then you probably want to look for things like build-arounds, so cards that you want to build your deck around. So in this pack, perfect example is Kiki Jiki. So this is an infinite combo if you get one of the other pieces, but because it's coloured, it's probably just safer to take fast mana at this point. So I'm going to take Mana Vault. It's going to go in every single deck I play, and it's always going to be very good. Then after you've done power, fast mana, build rounds, you probably want to look for sort of lands, mana fixing, which gets more important as the draft goes on, and then just generically good cards. So that's sort of my general list for Vintage Cube drafting. It's also quite nice to be able to stay open. As I said, all my trophies have been with those monocolored decks. I've generally, for the first maybe 8 picks almost, just picked generically good cards, hopefully not color specific, and then seen what's open, and in those cases mono red or mono white has been open and I've taken those colors. This next pack's kind of interesting because it doesn't really have any of those things I was talking about. Lodestone Golem is colorless, Smuggler's Copter I've actually found very decent in those aggressive decks. It's very nice to be able to loot. It's also colorless. There's nothing super powerful in this pack that's pulling me towards a color. I always like Duplicant, Green Sun, Zenith. So I think it's here between like Copter, Lodestone Golem, and Duplicant. I'm going to take Duplicant because I feel like it's the most flexible, although it doesn't go into aggressive decks. But it is an artifact. It's a semi-removal spell that can also deal with creatures that can't normally be removed very easily, such as things that have protection from colors, or things that have abilities. I mean, they come back to the battlefield after they've been killed. So again, just staying colorless and taking a card from that pack. That was a pretty weak pack, to be honest. This next pack is also not the strongest. It has a couple of good cards if you're ready to commit to colors. Bitter Blossom is fine in a grindy deck. Collective Brutality is actually pretty good in the Vintage Cube. Leovold is one of the stronger cards if you can actually cast it. Of course, it is 3 colors, but it does a great job of protecting you and your permanents, and if you manage to get any of the draw 7 effects, it's really strong because your opponent's not going to draw anything. There's also Plow Wonder, which is good in the green deck. It is an interesting pick. There's no real payoffs, no build-arounds in this pack outside of Leovold. I might actually take Leovold here. It's basically my choice between Bloodstained Mire and Leovold. Bloodstained Mire is probably going to make the deck more often, but I'm kind of interested to see if we can ever get Leovold to actually work in a deck. So we'll kind of put that out to the side for the moment. Well, that's a nice, interesting direction for our draft, because this next pack does have some powerful payoffs. We've got Balance, which is good in a kind of fast mana. You get lots of signets, you get lots of planeswalkers, which aren't affected by balance, and you cast balance, and hopefully your opponent sacrifices a bunch of things, or if you can somehow sacrifice your own lands to do stuff, it's quite powerful. It's a bit of a tricky deck to pull together though, and it is white, which is one of the weakest colors in Cube, unless you're going straight up mono white. And it is an important idea to keep an eye out for those aggressive monocolored decks, because I said I've actually 3-0'd most of my drafts with those. Memory Jar is the other card that I'm looking at here, and the reason is because I've just picked up Leovold. Memory Jar is a fine card on its own, but of course having a draw 7 with Leovold is extremely powerful. Then there's other good cards in this pack, obviously Yawgmoth's Will, Gideon, Thragtusk, just the Signet is fine, but I'm going to see if we can get there with the Leovold and take the Memory Jar. If we do have Leovold in our deck, we'll want to have lots of mana fixing for it. So lots of fetch lands and a couple of jewels that are hopefully on colour. Still trying to look out for signs of what might be open. There's an Ulamog in this pack, which is fine if you're kind of ramping up. It's also colorless, so it's a fine pickup to take. There's Scrubland, which could help us splash Leovold. For instance, if we'd taken the Bloodstained Mire, Scrubland would then, be a... Well, it would always be a black source, but if you get a white fetch land, you can get black for Leovold. So that's a consideration. Then there's Iona, which is a reanimation target, and a couple of filler other playables. I'm going to take Ulamog here. I think it's the most powerful card. If we can cast it, we might end up being like a mono-coloured ramp deck as well, since outside of Leovold I've only taken colourless cards. So I'm pretty open about what colour I'm going to be. This, I think, is the first kind of signal pack that I might have had about what could be open. We've seen a couple of green cards going past, and here we see Fyndhorn Elves. It's not exactly the biggest signal, because Fyndhorn Elves isn't extremely powerful, but it is one of those cards you're kind of keeping an eye out for what's going a bit later, what could I potentially do. The Mana Elves deck, which is essentially always, well, it's definitely green, obviously, but it's often mono-green. Is basically the plan of putting a ton of cheap mana accelerants into play and then casting something ridiculous and large. So we do have an Ulamog, we've got some mana acceleration. I'm going to take the Fyndhorn Elves here because I feel like it's the clearest signal of what might be open. Could be that someone right next to us is drafting the same deck, and so we won't get paid off at all. But, this is kind of, again, a hedge pick. It also fits with Leovold's colours. So this pack has Sorcerous Spyglass, which is fine, especially if you need artifacts. Tangle Wire, which is good in sort of spill out your hand onto the board deck. Runaway Steamkin is really good in the mono-red aggro deck, but we haven't really seen those colours open. I think I'm going to play it safe here and take Spyglass. It can shut down Planeswalkers. It's always fine, it's never great, but it's kind of keeping with our colourless theme and still seeing what's going to be open. We're going to have a bit of fun this draft. Alright, speaking of fun, the Hoof. So unfortunately, if someone next to us was drafting mono green, we're going to take the Hoof from them. This is basically the payoff for having all of these weenie creatures in your deck. So Crater Fyndhorn Elves, you play a couple of mana accelerants, and you either cheat this Crater Hoof Behemoth into play, or you just cast it fairly and attack them for a bunch of damage. It's a really good payoff. It's probably the best payoff for being mono green. Raphelos is kind of another payoff, but you do need stuff to cast with him. We did see Green Sun Zenith in our opening pack. Or possibly the pack after our opening pack, but I think it was the opening pack. Anyway, I've talked enough about Craterhoof, let's take that here. Hopefully we can go into mono green, although we do need to get a bit lucky that someone else... You can't really have two people drafting mono green, it doesn't work out particularly well. So this pack, there's a Relic of Progenitus, which is a very good sideboard hate card. Nahiri, who I quite like, but unfortunately... she's fine to get out these guys, but they don't instantly win the game when they come out, and it is two different colours. I think I'm actually going to take Relic here. Carnage Tyrant is also fine. I would definitely play this, but there's kind of enough generic green hate on blue cards that you can pick up one kind of fatty that can't be countered, whether it's Thrun or one of the other ones. So, was this our initial pack? I can't even remember. Experimental Frenzy, by the way, is really good in that mono-red deck with the Steamkin. I had this insane game where I completely comboed off with that and cast about 8 or 9 spells on turn 3. But anyway, I'm going to take Nissa here because, again, I feel like that's the direction this deck is heading. So we didn't see Green Sun Zenith come back. There's a couple of cards here, none that we're interested in. I'll take Whisperworld Elemental in the hopes of cutting off green, because that is the most likely colour that we're going to be, although we still don't have to be in that colour. We've got enough colourless cards that if something else should be open, but none of the other cards excite me. Sword of Body and Mind versus Thragi. Thragi is actually pretty nice to have. It's very good if you end up in the Upwelling deck, which we could wheel into since we have Mana Vault, which is fast mana, and we have Leovold, and that's the kind of thing you play in an Upwelling deck. I'm taking it over Sword of Body and Mind, Tireless Tracker. So we're getting some, these are green filler cards, but Tireless Tracker is actually better than it looks. It's a good way for green to actually draw cards, which is kind of unusual. These two cards, none of them are going to make my deck, so I'll take the one actually playable creature. Let's have a look at how we're looking at the moment. So, yeah, we're still fairly open. It might be that green's open and there just weren't many of those elves and stuff opened in the first pack, or it might be that someone else is drafting it and we don't want to be in those colours. But we do have the Craterhoof, so it might just be worth kind of getting some elves when we can. let's take a look at this next pack and see if it gives us any indication. There's no power here, there's no fast mana. This is colorless mana, which is fine, but it doesn't actually accelerate you ahead of the curve ridiculously early. It's fine, and you know, a safe pick to take if you're unsure. There's also a mana elf. There's 2 mana elves. The 1 mana elves are far more important than the 2 mana ones, though, because obviously you get accelerated even faster. There's another Ulamog. This one better to sneak into play because it has Annihilator, but I'm not excited by it. Inkwell Leviathan would be good if we had something like a Tinker or a reason to do it. Terastodon is a big green dude, which is fine, but I prefer to pick up the elves first. So, tell you what, we'll take the elf here because I think that's the direction we're going. And again, nothing super standout for us here. Nothing that combos with Leovold as a Blooming Marsh, but that's about it. And we'll just kind of keep going in this green path and see what happens. Okay, again this pack has no real clear signal cards. There's nothing that's like overwhelmingly powerful, or even that combos with anything, so I guess we're just going to take a green card from it. This is the kind of deck where Winter Orb is fine, especially if you can pick up a Gaia's Cradle or some land that taps for a lot of mana, because you can kind of lock your opponent out of the game while still having access to mana yourself because of the elves. Harmonize is a very good piece in the green deck though, because as I said, it does lack draw, even though with that said, for some reason we actually have Memory Jar, we've got Tireless Tracker, so we've already got 2 good draw spells as well. But anyway, the Harmonize is good because green does run out of gas pretty early, but it gets a lot of mana, so draw in green is very important. Ooh, okay, well this is more of an interesting pick. So, in this pack we have things that are standing out to me. Crucible of Worlds I always liked, always a good card. It is more powerful in a green deck because you get things that can play multiple lands a turn, you get things that can, you know, kind of combo off with it, fast bond, strip mine kind of deal. There's Opposition, which would be a strong commitment to blue, but is good in a deck that's generating a lot of creatures. I don't think it's exactly the direction I want to go at this moment. And there's Wooded Foothills, which is a fetch land that's on colour in that it's green, so if we wanted to splash, something like a Leovold would be quite good. Primal Command is fine. I'm not a big fan of it. I think I'm actually going to take Crucible of Worlds here because of the potential combos out there. Crucible is always a strong card. Even if you just generically stick it in a deck and have a couple of fetch lands, it's pretty decent. Other people, you can discard lands, they can get destroyed, and if we do see Fast Bond and Strip Mine, then we're really going off. Here's a nice one, Natural Order. So this is, again, one of those payoff cards for green. This means you can sneak a Craterhoof Behemoth in pretty early. It's just a very strong card. Getting it 3rd or 4th pick is kind of a pretty good signal that no one to, direction our right is drafting green, which is nice because that's where we thought they might be drafting green in that direction. So this is, I see, a pretty good signal. Like there's a chance that the person is drafting green and took something like Raphaelos, but it's slim. Natural Order is one of those premium cards for the green deck. Anything that cheats stuff into play is basically really good. So I'm happy to pick that up here and kind of more commit to the green, even though I've been pretty committed for these last couple of picks anyway. So here there's a couple of Garoks, but my eye is really caught by Strip Mine. We're now a couple of cards off going really broken stuff with the Crucible of Worlds Strip Mine combination. If you pick up Fast Bond, of course, that's just, you know, ridiculous. You can just destroy all of their lands in a single turn. And even if you pick up stuff like Course of Kruphix and the Oracle of Muldiah that let you draft, that let you play multiple lands, then that of course goes off as well. So I guess that's a good kind of point to talk about Cube. The reason why Cube is quite hard to draft is you need to know what's in the cube and what's not in the cube. Because you're only going to face the cards that are in the cube, and you're never going to face something that isn't in the cube. So I know, for instance, that Force Spike has been taken out of the cube for this particular iteration of the Vintage Cube, but that Daze is still in it. So if someone's got 1 blue open, so if someone has no blue open, they can't counter my spell with a... That's not really making sense. Anyway, but I do know what cards are in the cube and what cards aren't in the cube, and that really helps me to build a game plan around that. So I'm going to take this land here. I think there's a chance I want to splash Leovold, and this is always just going to be fine with Crucible of Worlds because it can fetch green, and I'll probably wheel... These are kind of mediocre... Sakura Tribolt is actually pretty good, but I don't need it. I don't need it yet, and I think Verdant Catacombs, because I have the Crucible and the potential to splash Leovold, is better at this point. Ooh. Okay, so I'm going to talk a little bit about, again, when there's no card that you're particularly, or when you're tossing up between cards, which card should you be taking? So, essentially you want your cards to have a plan. They're either going to help you win or stop your opponent from winning, which green is really weak on, but I'll get back to that in a second. So because you want to have a plan and you want to be affecting the board, mid-rangey good cards are way less important than cheap early spells or game-winning late bombs. So I'm far less inclined to pick up something like Whisperwood Elemental, which is a good card, it's a good magic card, but it's like a 5-drop that doesn't win the game and I can't cast early. Something compared to, say, Craterhoof Behemoth or Woodfall Primus, which are huge late-game bombs that just, win the game, or 1-mana plays like Fyndhorn Elves, Mana Vault, Arbor Elf. Remember, I first picked Arbor Elf, so I'm obviously quite high on it. So that's my reasoning there, that you should take these early cheap plays on the game-winning bombs, and then fill out what's left with the last pick Siege Gang Commanders, etc. There's a pick here between Eternal Witness. I love Eternal Witness, one of my favourite Magic cards, but it's not great in this deck. It's really good when you have stuff like blue draw spells, Ancestral Visions, etc. So I'm just going to take another fetch land. Terasti came back. So yeah, I could take Ulamog here or Terasti, but Terasti's better because I can fetch it out with Natural Order. And we're not sneaking things into play, we're actually casting them, so it's a lot easier to cast Terastodon. Good news is that it does look like mono green is open. Someone might have started in it and then given up, or they might be dabbling with like a green-blue variant, what have you. This pack actually has nothing for us, but I'll take Assassin's Trophy because we could splash it with the Catacombs, potentially the Windswept Heath, and it's on colour with Leovold, Primal Command, and Kitchen Finks. Both fine cards. It's interesting actually which one I want. One's good against aggro, the other is a fine effect. I guess I've already got the Thragtusk. I'll take the Primal Command. The Kitchen Finks is kind of replaceable. Don't really want to cast any of these, but there's a potential I might play Scrapit Scrounger. Like, if I could play Phyrexian Arena, I would, but it's going to be pretty hard to get double black in an essentially mono-green deck. I'm not going to play the Scrounger. Dragon Lord and 2 white cards. There's no point hate drafting here, because if there's a white player next to me, they're going to get a good card either way. I may as well make them pick between them. Okay, we've got the Sakura Tribolder back. So it does hopefully look like green is open. We might get rewarded in this final pack with, 5th pick Raphelos, 2nd pick Channels, those kind of things. Anyway, that's what we're hoping for. So, again, no power. That's a bit sad. We do at least have the Mana Vault. We're also really looking out for Fast Bond. That's a card that, if you don't have a deck for it, is pretty bad, but if you do have a deck for it, it's pretty amazing. We haven't seen either the Oracle of Muldiah or the Course of Kruphix, I believe, so there's potential to get those here as well. Not much in this pack. We're kind of picking another thing that we can ramp into. I think it's between Acidic Slime and the Mere Battle Sphere. The Battle Ball is good. It's a very undercosted, aggressive threat. It gives you a ton of creatures, which is good with the Craterhoof. Acidic Slime is fine, but we do at least have that kind of effect already with the Woodfall Primus. So I might actually take the Battlesphere here, because it combos so well with the Craterhoof Behemoth. There's going to be a lot of games I can see where we just ramp out to 7 on like turn 4 or something, and then just cast Battlesphere, or turn 3, and that'll win us the game. It's a lot better than casting Ulamog. Again, nothing amazing here. No fixing for Leovold, no game-breaking green cards. There's a sideboard green card, which I might actually end up taking. Another giant fat thing, which we don't need. I really need the early game ramp for this deck to really tick. I could also take Knight of Autumn and splash white, because Knight of Autumn is a slightly better card than Nature's Claim. Does basically the same thing, and I do have a Windswept Heath, but it's not certain I'll be able to cast it. Regrowth is the same thing as Eternal Witness. It's slightly worse, and I don't really have anything amazing to get back. Bit sad. Yeah, I don't need the Kozilek. If I didn't have all these fat things, I'd take Kozilek, but I think here I'm actually just going to take Nature's Claim. because I do want some kind of a way to destroy artifacts or enchantments, and Knight of Autumn might very well wheel. Oh, ooh, there's the Upheaval, but there's a Raphelos in this pack, so... Alright, here's our payoff for being mono-green. Raphelos can ramp you absurdly fast if you've got any kind of... I mean, even if you're just playing it on curve, you play, you know, Forest... Even if you don't have an elf, you play Forest, you pass. You play Forest, you play Raphelos, you play Forest. You got 6 mana on turn 3, hooray, how fair is that? So that's very nice. It's a pity we didn't get that Green Sun Zenith from the first pack, because that's obviously the best way to search Raphelos up. Outside of Raphelos, Upheaval is really kind of strong in this deck that can generate a bunch of mana, although we've already got the payoff, so we don't need it. And there's a Ramunap Excavator, which again, if we can get Fast Bond, is a second Crucible, but there's a chance that we wheel, quite a high chance we wheel the Ramunap Excavator, and we don't actually have the Fast Bond yet. Noble Hierarch, easy pick here. After the Noble Hierarch, I would probably take Quagmire for the Black Splash, and then Solemn Simulacrum, which is fine. If I was really lacking on creatures, I'll take the Solemn a bit higher, but 1 mana elves are exactly what we're in the market for. Search for Tomorrow's Savannah, Fauna Shaman. All fine options. Savannah doesn't really do anything for us because we don't have that Knight of Autumn, and other than that I can't really see a point of splashing white, so I'm probably going to take the Fauna Shaman here. We'll probably wheel a Search, maybe the Savannah, probably the Rishadan Port or something, so we'll get something back out of this pack, but I do want ways to search out my fat guys, and Fauna Shaman seems like a decent enough way to do that. So here I've got a choice whether I want a Chrome Mox or a Hangerback Walker. That's kind of my choice. I'm not super fussed by the Chrome Mox. You are always down an actual card with this Mox. But it is ramp, and I really don't need Hangerback. I mean, it's just like another generic creature. It's a good one, especially against removal-heavy decks, but... yeah, it's fine with Nissa. Alright, I'm not a big fan of Chrome Mox, so I'll take the Hangerback Walker. It's probably getting cut, but hard to tell at this point. Alright. So there's 2 green cards for us here. Sylvan Library versus Thrun the Last Troll. I'm not even sure. It's definitely Sylvan Library. I'm not even sure if Thrun would be better against counter decks than Sylvan Library, to be honest, because Sylvan Library just draws you multiple cards a turn if you need it to. Also very good with shuffle effects, and we do have 2 of those and a Crucible. It's a pity we didn't see that Fast Bond or any of the things that let us play multiple lands a turn. Don't know whether someone else is drafting green and took those, or we just got a bit unlucky. Okay, well here is actually a reason to splash green, is Mirari's Wake. Sorry, it's to splash white. Mirari's Wake is quite strong. Unfortunately there's 8 cards in this pack, so we won't wheel anything. Manglehorn is also pretty decent as just a generic filler card. Good card to come in out of the board. If I'd taken Savannah, I'd definitely take Mirari's Wake here. Since we are kind of lacking a lot of ramp outside of Raphelos, yeah, I'm going to take Mirari's Wake. I feel like the upside is high enough that I won't miss the Manglehorn that much. So now we've seen all the cards, we know what's coming back, we're not getting Fast Bond, we're not getting any of the things that we can play extra lands, which is sad. I'll still play Strip Mine and Crucible because they don't really hurt me, but it could have been a lot better. So over here, do I want Yavimaya Elder or Mutavault? I've got enough creatures, I don't think I need the Mutavault. And this is probably going to get cut, but there's also Mana Flare, but nah. Alright, the Knight of Autumn wheeled. So if we can somehow get the Savannah up next, that could be a nice little splash of white. Nope. I guess that was it. That was a little bit hopeful. I'll take a Destroy spell. We don't really have any interaction in this deck, and that is the problem with being green, is that outside of Beast Within, you don't really get good interactive cards. They took out Song of the Dryads or something, so... Oh, hang on. I was just way off at how far away Savannah was. Alright, great, we get a Savannah. So now we can actually do this white splash quite easily, which is nice, but not hurt our mana base for Rofellos, since Savannah counts as both a forest and a plains. So that's nice. With the Savannah, we've now got 3 sources, 4 with the Noble Hierarch, 4 sources of white, which is definitely enough to splash. Since we've got 4, there's the Sakura Tribe Elder, 5. Does anything else? 5 with a bit of draw. Yeah, it's definitely enough to cast, and we've got Crucible if we need so. So Knight of Autumn is a very nice upgrade over something like Yavimaya Elder. Mirari's Wake is a nice ramp card over... I don't know about Memory Jar. How many cards of this currently? Let's have a look. Sorcerer's Spyglass is kind of a filler card that we can bring in. It's 25. This is sorted by converted mana cost. I'm not, just take Whispered Elemental out. All these other things are better than it. We don't have a ton of ramps, so I'm probably going to play 17 lands. I don't have a ton of early players. I'll probably play 17 lands in this deck. What does Nissa do? Nissa's a Planeswalker, she's alright. I don't really want to cut any of these early things. These things are all fine. Hangerback Walker's a bit medium. So that's a potential cut. I think, even though I don't have any big combos with Memory Jar, that the draw 7 is probably worth playing. Since I've got Memory Jar, Harmonize, they're my only draw spells. Yeah, I want to keep those in. So Hagtusk is a pretty decent creature. Crucible's nice with the fetch lands and the strip mine. And I don't need a big payoff. The only thing going for Hangerback Walker is that, it can come down earlier than these creatures, and it's also like a fine combo with the Craterhoof Behemoth, because it creates a bunch of dudes. Duplicant I really like actually in this deck because it's a removal spell and we don't really have many of those. So it's either between Hangerback Walker and maybe Nissa, I guess, could be the weakest one of my other cards. What's Nissa gonna do? What's Nissa versus Hangerback Walker? Which one would I prefer? So the Hangerback Walker, sort of roundish the same mana cost. That's when it generally comes down. Hangerback Walker's way better late game top deck. Nissa is better kind of a grindy card, I guess. They're also quite good together, because you can put +1/+1 counters on it. I don't really know between the Walker and the Nissa. It's a bit harder to kill Nissa. Is there anything else that I would consider taking out? Tracker's good. All of these 1-drops are good. Primal Command's not amazing, but it kind of does enough stuff that I guess it's in. I don't think I need the Hangerback Walker. Nissa's double green, that doesn't matter because I'm just playing all green. Alright, well, let's see how this goes. We've got Relic for the sideboard, we've got Hangerback Walker, and we've got Sorcerer's Spyglass. So let's add the lands, and it's probably going to tell us to add a plains, which we're not going to do. So let's combine everything. 17 lands, Rofellos, some powerful stuff in the late game. Mirari's Wake really nice in this deck because otherwise we're missing out on a bit of ramp. Yeah, seems good. Alright, let's screenshot the deck. Save it. And let's get into round 1.